after writing several more screenplays later on, I segued into concentrating on novel writing and short stories, because the words on the page are your end product. It is not part of a larger process.
Right.
So I like that concentration or the purity of that. So I thought, you know what? I read a lot. I certainly always have loved films, but I'm going to concentrate on this, which I did for several years, and I didn't return to screenwriting until about the year 2000.
But in the time, jumping ahead into the future, at one time, I think for a 2-year period, we were roommates when we were in our 20s and moved out of the parents' homes and etc. You were trying to get stuff published, I believe, like your short stories. You would submit them.
Yeah, I was writing. I was trying my hand at like crime fiction, so desperate characters and desperate situations, and how things can so quickly fall apart. Those are the kinds of short stories I was writing. So I submitted them to existing crime and mystery magazines that were still in publication, such as Alfred Hitchcock Mystery Magazine and Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine.
Boy's Life.
Yeah, right. And also
Ranger Rick.
Also science fiction short stories that I sent to like Asimov Science Fiction Digest. And so I would get those rejection letters that you probably remember that I would put up.
That's what I remember.
In front of my
hang them on the wall, which you read someone else did that for inspiration or something.
Stephen King did that.
Stephen King,
amongst other writers.
Heard of him.
That was the first time I had heard that before. So I always kind of liked that idea.
But you continue to write. And,
in Richmond, when I was living in Richmond, that's when I returned to screenwriting. My last couple of years there, I just thought, you know what? I still like the whole idea of the zombie thing.
That's what I was going to bring up. I know you returned to the zombie idea years later. Your original middle school, your first screenplay was zombies. Mm-hmm. And now you said what, late 90s, early 2000s, you're returning to
2000, 2001.
Wow.
I came up with this concept about a modern day slave trade, because in this futuristic environment that was slightly ahead in the future, the economy was so bad that people were attracted to this idea that this entrepreneur has come up with. He's hosting a modern day slave trade in conjunction with local businesses. If you join the slave trade, you work for them, but they'll supply you with food and shelter. So he kind of creates this sort of pre-internet viral marketing thing. And people show up at this local roller rink. They have a fun time with the family, roller skating, and then they get into a sort of bidding war with local companies who solicit their services in exchange for the free room and board. So, but in the meantime, zombies have reawakened.
I was going to say, where do zombies come into play?
And they're trying to get into the roller rink and also become a part of the slave trade, since they're left out in the cold.
So zombies need room and board too.
Yeah. So that was my concept of skate night slave trade. So that was my first return screenplay since the early 90s.
Skate night slave trade. Now I was going to ask, I always like your titles. Do you come up with the titles first?
Usually.
So
just like a movie producer, like an exploitation producer does, where they have the title and the poster first.
So somewhere, someday, the phrase skate night slave trade popped into your head. And then from there, you develop what is the story of skate night slave trade.
Yep, the first in a trilogy, just like the Suburban Depravity trilogy.
You like trilogies, don't you?
Yep, so it was Skate Night Slave Trade, Key Lime Pirate, and Sky Capped Freedom Fighter.
So what came of this screenplay? Did you attempt to shop it around?
yeah, that was the next step because I was so excited by it. I first decided to try and shoot it just like I did Suburban Depravity.
Really?
So yeah, a local guy at the bookstore that I frequented, the Borders, he had a camera and we would always talk about movies. So I had written the screenplay and I thought, let's just go out and shoot it somehow. So I employed his services as cameraman and I recruited some people that I'd worked with.
When you say employed, you didn't actually pay them, did you?
No, just
right,
doing it for fun.
Yeah, you want to make a movie? Let's make a movie together. Yeah,
I procured his services. So he was into it, and plus he had a computer so he could edit the footage.
Oh wow!
So I thought, okay, we're in business, man. This is what I always kind of wanted to do: a very compact system. It had a good microphone on it because it sure beat shooting on Super 8 with that single system sound.
We learned.
Yeah. So I.
Oh, so this was a 16 millimeter?
No, this was a. He actually had a digital 8 camera. That's a very obsolete format.
Yes, I forgot about those.
It's almost like the Super 8 of video. Yeah. And so, well, I recruited some people for to play the parts, but the thing was, I knew I couldn't shoot the whole screenplay, scene for scene in the correct environments.
So you're going to have to get access to a skating rink.
That I had. We had an actual working skating rink there on the outskirts of Richmond. And so I basically wanted to do it as an experimental film. For instance, I would want to convey that we are in, let's say, a supermarket, even though we were outside, or somehow theatrically have some minimal props, almost like you would in a theater play.
Yeah.
And try to convey locations, except for we did have the actual roller rink. So we actually shot that for months on weekends.
Really?
And never got a chance to edit it because I was moving to New York, and I just figured, and the guy told me how long it took to download all that footage that we shot.
Yeah.
And he was, because this is before it happened quick.
Yeah.
He said it might take days just to like download, like constantly downloading. And I said, I just don't have time for that. So I took the tapes with me to New York. But before I moved, I did get a book from the bookstore that had agents for writing and addresses and contact information. So I started to formulate a query letter for Suburban Depravity and Key Lime Pirate, both of which I had already completed. And the query letters just basically are very short letters, kind of giving the basic log line or storyline for your project and why you think it's has a place in the market, and how, your basic belief in the project. How are you going to make this take off? What are its selling points? So I didn't really know where to begin. So I got that book with a list of contacts, and there's so many to choose from. So I needed to find someone who would be a fit for the material, somebody who would maybe accept something that's a little bit certainly genre and at least fantastical, someone who might be open to that type of material. So I came across this company, Circle of Confusion. I mean, right there, that was an interesting name. Yeah. And then I looked at their roster of clients, and at that time, their only notable name of clients, because they were in management, they really weren't agents, Circle of Confusion. They were a management company at first. The Wachowskis were their only notable client at that time, and they had made it big in recent times with The Matrix.
Oh yeah, this was probably shortly after The Matrix.
Yeah, except we're talking 2000, so it's like a year later.
Matrix was 99. Yeah.
So I thought, okay, that's where I'll begin. I will send my query letter for both of these projects to these guys, and they had an email. So I typed my query on my little, I didn't even have a computer. It was something called an internet appliance. You plugged it into your phone jack and you could just do these black and white emails. Wow. But at least I had a conduit to get in touch with these people. So I sent my query letter and waited. And 2 weeks went by and I came home from work and checked my my little machine and there was a response from Circle of Confusion.
It's crazy. Nowadays we can read and compose emails on our phone.
Yes.
Send.
And send documents.
Yeah. And just thinking.
And I had a simple reply.
20 years ago. So different.
That said, and it was from a guy named David Mattis, because Circle of Confusion was two brothers, the Mattis brothers, and David handled, I guess, the incoming scripts and that type of thing. And he said,
you didn't send him the whole script. You just sent him like a treatment.
Query. Yeah, it's what they call a query letter. So it's just it's like
basically
three
like
sentences. A pitch, yeah. It's a written pitch.
Gotcha.
And he said, and he sent me a release form. It's like a simple common release form. You're allowing this company to read your material, and that type of thing. And he said, please execute this form and forward a copy of Key Lime Pirate. So he picked Key Lime Pirate to read over Skate Night Slave Trade. So I sent him.
Did he understand that one was a sequel? Like, were you worried it wouldn't make sense?
I didn't get into that. They were tied in as thematically as a trilogy.
And what is the gist of? Give me the pitch of Key Lime Pirate.
They're basically zombies that went coast to coast on like pirate ships, and they subsisted on key limes.
So they wouldn't get scurvy?
And an agent was on their trail trying, almost like Interpol or whatever, and trying to bring down their operation. It was like a smuggling operation.
That's interesting.
So they are really into comics and all of that stuff. So I can kind of see why they would be perhaps interested in this project. So I felt like I'd already sold it. It felt so good. I mean, there I was, like, I'd never tried this before, sending a query letter, and these guys are my first, and they want to read it. I just felt like I made the sale. That's not how it works.
Right.
But it was a great feeling.
Now, did you send it to him via email?
FedEx.
Okay. So, I was going to say, it didn't sound like you'd be able to attach the entire screenplay to that.
I don't even think you could do that back then.
Yeah, probably not.
Weeks went by, I think 6 weeks, and I would send emails every couple of weeks, and they they sent me an actual rejection letter saying, thanks, but
thanks, but no thanks.
We certainly would look forward to your material in the future, kind of thing. I thought, okay, well, that's my
Did you hang that on the wall?
Yeah, I carry that with me. And then I moved to New York. And then I wrote.
Okay, this is before New York. Gotcha.
Yeah, and then I wrote the third in the trilogy, Skycap Freedom Fighter, which was about a zombie revolution in the Congo. And they were attacking American industrial companies that were destroying the rivers and the land and ignoring the locals.
So an environmental message.
Yeah, social, political, all that stuff. So that was the completion of the trilogy, and it was about a mercenary who was a skycap by day.
Now, when you say trilogy, again, you're doing more of a thematic trilogy than
the characters like Romero's.
Right, the characters aren't necessarily carrying over from one film to the next.
That's correct.
Okay.
So who am I going to send it to first? Circle of Confusion, and I sent them a query letter, and they sent me a release form.
Here we go again.
Yeah, and I thought, all right, I'm back, and I get another nice letter. to add to my wall,
Oh,
a rejection letter. But again, from David Mattis, saying, look forward to the material in the future. And then later, 2 years later, after, it was 2 years later, I was living in Queens by that time. And I really got into comic books. And I thought it would be fun to write a comic. I've never tried that. So I looked up how to write a comic, what format to utilize. And I wrote a 3-parter about a mercenary squad. It's called Mercenary Action. And then I queried Circle of Confusion. I just decided to stick with these guys because they were so responsive.
Would this be your third attempt with them?
Yeah.
So you're thinking third time's the charm.
Yeah. And I queried, and they sent me the release form, just like the usual routine. And I sent them the first issue in script, comic script format, and I got the polite rejection letter once again. And then
I don't mean to laugh, but it's almost like they're teasing you each time. You
but
get
it's
your hopes up.
At least you have a place to send your material and you get a response. Yeah. It feels good as a writer.
Right, rather than just no response. I get that. But it's quite the roller coaster.
That's a professional way of doing it. They're professionals. And 3 years later, they got The Walking Dead and they're producing it.
Jeez.
A huge, huge success for them. And their roster began to increase over the years.
And we should point out that your zombie submissions were kind of before the zombie comeback. Like The Walking Dead became
Which
huge.
Was like 2003 really was the return of
right, but you were kind of ahead of the trend.
Just a couple of years. Yeah.
Maybe you gave them the idea, like
I mean, everything kind of floats in the ether. I mean, we're all thinking the same ideas, and that's one thing you'll notice.
Okay, what am I thinking right now?
You are thinking Jersey Mike's, maybe tonight or tomorrow.
Okay, couple things. You're close, because I actually was thinking, I'm getting hungry. I should get something to eat. But earlier today, I was thinking about Jersey Mike's because I got a notification saying it was double points day. I said, maybe I should have Jersey Mike's tonight. So I was thinking that exact thought earlier, and I was thinking about food in general. So, okay, you're right. We're all thinking the same thing at the same time.
So, yeah, that's the way I see things. We all live on the same planet, and you having an idea, I could easily have the same idea just at a different time because we live in the same world. And a lot of times it's just timing. And that's why when people say, oh, you were ahead of the curve, well, I just happened to be thinking those ideas at that time. And they were based on old ideas from years before that.
Sure.
So it is all timing, and it's great how that works. It works out for people.
So what was your next adventure?
And after that, I moved into an idea about a year later called Midnight Broker. And I thought about doing a genre film that could be done on a micro budget, limited location, small cast, but a high concept idea, one that was easily pitchable that you could do in 30 seconds. And this one took place in the real estate rental world, where a young salesperson who was constantly down on her luck and working so hard trying to close deals, renting these apartments, and they'd come so close and they just wouldn't happen. So a desperate character. And into the office walks a distinguished gentleman who is looking for 3 apartments for himself. And he turns out to be a vampire, of course, looking for...
I was waiting for the genre twist.
For safe houses for himself and other vampires. So that's the twist. And does she continue to deal with him once she finds out or not? because times are tough and
Yeah.
money's money.
Yeah.
So that was the concept. And I wanted to start pitching that. And I wanted to pitch more than one place this time. So I just kind of came up with 3 filmmakers that I could start with, whose work I respect or excites me, and who might in some way, shape, or form be interested in this material as a fit. So I took off work for a day to concentrate on it, and I made my list of 3, and it started with Joe Dante, Stuart Gordon, and Clive Barker. So I came up with a 30-second pitch exactly, more give or take a few seconds, of Midnight Broker. And my plan was to leave it on voicemail at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. So to be the first thing that they would hear in the office or whomever was checking the answering machine.
Were they all located in New York as well?
No, all 3 of them are LA based.
Oh.
So it'd be really early in the morning when
the
messages would be received.
Gotcha.
So that was the idea. And I did not want to get someone on the phone, because the natural inclination when someone has you on the phone and they want to sell you something is to hang up on them.
Mm-hmm.
So that wouldn't help me. And I'd be just another writer trying to hawk my thing for sale. So I figure a voicemail pitch, they can either listen to it or not. And they might be amused by it.
And were you able to get through and leave these voicemails? I
did. I left them early in the day, just as planned.
You did all 3 on the same day?
Yes, all 3 of the same day.
How did you get the phone numbers for these directors?
At that time, IMDb Pro was available on the internet. So the Pro was new. And of course, IMDb has got all the listings, cast and crew, and movies and everything.
Pro is you have to pay for, right? It's like
paid like $5 for it. And the deal with Pro is you could look up production companies, not only movies, and you could find contact information, the executives' emails and phone numbers.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
So with that in tow, that's how it helped me come up with the idea of calling, because I had email and I had voice, and I figured a voice pitch would be more interesting than an email pitch. At least it'd be a voice voicing a pitch. So at least to have some personality. So I made sure to make it energetic and quick, and went about my day. I took a nap. Clive Barker didn't call me. Stuart Gordon didn't call me, but Joe Dante did.
The same day you left the message?
Yes.
Not like the next day or a week later, the same day. Wow. Were you expecting that, or you thought maybe within a week I'll hear something? Because like your previous ones, you'd say a week went by, then I heard back from Confusion or whatever. So
I was expecting, nothing or something later.
Right. So the same day. Wow.
Same day. I woke up from my nap. I saw the flashing light on my flip phone and picked it up, and I played the message because the number looked familiar, because it was the one I dialed, and it was the office. It was Renfield Productions, and Joe Dante did not identify himself, but he has a very identifiable.
Renfield is a character from Dracula, right?
Yes, I thought that was perfect.
And it's a vampire movie. Anyway, go ahead. So the voice, he didn't identify himself, but it was obvious to you it was Joe Dante himself.
Yeah, hey, if you know Joe Dante and have heard his voice, it's very identifiable.
Wow. So you got a call from the guy himself.
Yeah. So I picked up the phone. And it was, hello, this is Renfield Productions, calling for Bryan Land. Wow. You had left a pitch for a project entitled Midnight Broker. And it's very interesting, but if you do not have representation at this time. We cannot accept your material, but it certainly is intriguing, and that would be we'd love to read it once you acquire representation. Have a great day.
The certainly is intriguing. I could hear Joe Dante saying that. And if anyone's listening to this who doesn't know who Joe Dante is, he directed Gremlins, The Burbs, Small Soldiers, Explorers, the original Piranha. What am I leaving out? Gremlins is his biggest one. Gremlins 2, I guess he did 2. So, you know, the guy directed Gremlins. Like he's a big player in Hollywood.
That's right.
And he's leaving a voicemail for this guy, Bryan Land. You were
that
probably
was a treat.
I'm sure you were probably, how many times did you listen to it?
5 before I went to the grocery store.
To get something what? Like get that. Some champagne to celebrate.
I had to go out.
I made it.
Once again, it was kind of like getting that first response.
But it wasn't, and it wasn't a complete rejection. It was, unfortunately, you need representation. And so did you was the next step to attempt representation?
I did not move in that direction. It probably took me a few weeks because I enjoyed the whole idea. The actual filmmakers are more responsive than agencies.
But you didn't hear from Barker or Gordon?
Not that day. But later on in the week, maybe not even a week went by, Stuart Gordon called.
Stuart Gordon himself, not someone...
Himself, and he identified himself as Stuart Gordon, and I picked up this time.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't voicemail. You actually interacted with him.
So
what are you doing? Trying to keep it cool, but then inside you're saying, "Holy smokes, this is Stuart Gordon."
Yeah, I'm like,
and some of his credits is Reanimator.
Mm-hmm.
Was it From Beyond? Is that one?
From Beyond. He did those.
Robot Jocks.
Dolls.
Which probably no one knows of Robot Jocks.
Dagon was originally attached to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
So anyway, obviously a genre filmmaker, the horror realm,
and I always liked him because of his outrageous take on material. And he was a risk taker because he came from the theater in Chicago.
As did you? No, I'm just kidding.
Having worked with George Wendt and Dennis Franz and David Mamet at the Organic Theater, and Joe Mantegna, and great creative people.
All those Chicago guys.
Yeah. So that was amazing because here I was having a dialogue with someone whose work I absolutely admired.
Right.
And it wasn't as if I just knew him. I really liked his stuff. You know? So that, and for him to personally, instead of sending an email or a letter, so this time I got a personal request to send the material to him so he could actually read the
even though you didn't have an agent. He wanted to see more.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he sent me the release form from Red Hen Productions. That was his production shingle.
And you're like, here I go.
Yeah. Once again. And I FedExed the copy of Midnight Broker. And after about 2 weeks, I followed up with him, and then he called me back to discuss. So he had notes and ideas that he thought maybe we could incorporate with it. And I'm thinking, and I'm listening, and sometimes it's hard to listen because this is your first time participating in something like this, because you're so excited. It almost diffuses the words. But I took his notes, and as I sat down, I got a whole new take on the screenplay. And I got more excited about it because now I've got this guy's attention. And all of a sudden my idea became grander. So instead of just a micro-budget vampire movie, I imagined 2 tribes of creatures battling out in modern day New York City for territory.
Now, was this inspired by any of his notes?
No.
It just so this is you going out on a whim. This is completely your kind of elaborating on the simpler story. Okay.
And I thought, this script, Stuart Gordon directing, he was going to do Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which was a big budget Disney movie originally. He and his creative partners, they cooked that one up and sold it to Disney. So that was a big project. And I thought, well, this will be a return to that, because he had been working in the more modest
back in the game.
Yeah. So I quickly wrote this draft, and this is something I do not do anymore. Just write something and send it off. Scripts need development. And I did not develop this concept. I just wrote it. And I sent it to him. And in less than a week, I got a call back from Stuart Gordon. And I asked him, so what did you think? He was like, what is this? It's a completely different script. This will cost like $110 million to do. And I said, but yes, that is true. We can figure out a way to do it for much less, I'm sure. But I think this is just a more ambitious and an interesting, and I think it's high concept, but bigger. Just like Midnight Broker was less ambitious, but it was high concept. It's the same thing, but it's a bigger canvas. And he just, in his tone, he was annoyed that I would send such a completely different script and just not incorporate any of the notes.
That's why I asked him, was inspired by any of his notes. So what were you thinking, like this would impress him, that you
in my naive mind,
in
my naive mind, my amateur mind.
But he actually wanted.
It's great. Amateur energy is great, but that was not the move.
He liked that. He liked that it was simple.
He liked,
and he wanted to keep it simple.
And he wanted to develop that script.
Yeah.
So it kind of faded from there at that moment. I didn't come back with the I felt like that was a wrong move, and I learned from it, and we never really communicated after that outside of, I saw him at a screening of Edmund.
And he knew who you were?
Yeah, but he kept on going because he was busy.
He's a guy, guy with his
you never know what's going through someone's head. But to this day, though, that was a tremendous experience, and
I bet
it was a great thing to be able to do.
And a learning experience, because you said that's something I don't do anymore. I will not. I would
not do that. If a director you respect takes your script and gives you some notes, go ahead and incorporate them and try to make it work.
I'm surprised he didn't give you another chance. Say, hey, I don't like what you did. Now write a draft and do incorporate my notes and go back to your original idea that I liked. He just kind of like, you made this one mistake, and he kind of like, moved on from you.
Yeah, you hope to do it better the next time. But a year later, he was doing Masters of Horror with all the Joe Dante and Don Coscarelli and Toby Hooper.
Right.
That show got developed by Mick Garris, so that was on Showtime. And that got a lot of attention. So he did move into that, and that kind of gave him some late career attention. And unfortunately, he died a year or two ago. But I will always remember, that phone call and those conversations for sure.
And this was what, 2004-ish?
Let's see, this would have been 2006.
Okay.
2006, 2007 was when I was working on that version, or those versions of Midnight Broker.
So based on Joe Dante's comments, you think you will attempt to get representation? Do you think that would help you?
Yes. I mean, there's no question that acquiring management and or an agent will get you farther. So here we are in 2022. I'm working on yet another version of Midnight Broker, this time in a limited series format, 4 chapters. And I've returned to its modestly budgeted roots and limited locations and a smaller cast, but still high concept. And these days, you'd want to kind of package it. And these days, it's changed a lot since 2006. We have streaming platforms who are looking for content, and limited series is certainly a format.
Yeah, what's the one, was it Shudder that specializes in the horror genre?
Yeah, yeah.
And they had the Creep Show reboot. This would be perfect for something like that.
Yeah, fantastical material, you know. But it's opened the doors creatively because they're willing to invest. People like watching chapters over one feature.
Yeah,
it's interesting. You can make an epic, essentially a 3-hour movie, but if you cut it into chapters, people see it as short.
Right.
They perceive it. Whereas if you give them a 3-hour movie, they're like, I'm not sitting through a 3-hour movie.
Well, they even did that with Tarantino's The Hateful Eight on Netflix. It's available as a series or as the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think the series might even be longer. It's like the original director's cut, but then it's chopped up into episodes. So yeah, that's a good point. I was going to put it out there in the universe that you are unsigned. If there's anyone that knows of a literary agent that wants to help this guy get his ideas out there, because I find them very, very interesting and unique, and always with like a little bit of social commentary, but like through the lens of the genre films like zombies and vampires and what have you. I'm going to put your Twitter handle up there, and maybe someone could reach out to you or just follow you just to see what you're up to. And so, yeah, I mean, you've been constantly writing since I've ever known you, and you're always like, someone else would just probably give it up, but not you. You keep going, and I think that's good. They say, you know, don't stop believing. Don't stop working on stuff.
I'll get Journey to be my manager.
Journey, yeah. Or whoever presently manages Journey could also manage you. And you could, like the Foo Fighters recently did a movie. We could do a Journey movie, and you could write it. Like that.
It would be based on the Journey video game.
Wow. Now we're incorporating all sorts of things. Video games being made into movies and vice versa. Don't stop believing.
It's time for KOREY's Conversations. It's time for KOREY's Conversations.
Thanks for watching.